Thanks for coming.
Yeah, of course.
Tell us a little bit about yourself.
So my name is Alec. I'm a junior at UNT studying psychology. It's definitely my passion. I'm working for my parents at their restaurant right now. Just trying to make it work.
Cool. What restaurant is it?
It's down in South Lake. It's called Wildwood.
Okay. Yeah. Cool. I have to try it out. So why psychology?
So, psychology has always been something I've been really interested in, and it was my major the first time I was going through college. I ended up dropping out for a little bit, and it was the only thing that stuck with me while I was out of school. And I don't know, I love it. It's something that really helps me learn how to use certain tools in my life to be able to cope with things and go through life and make the right decisions and help people and all that.
Is that what you want to do? Get into like psychotherapy, or like what are you intending to do with it?
I'm not sure if I want to go into therapy or if I want to possibly go get my doctorate and become a professor.
Okay.
I mean, there's so many different things that I could do with it. I'm trying to keep an open mind about it, and whatever feels right, and I know it'll come when the time is right.
Right. Okay. Yeah, for sure. For me, I feel like if I wasn't pursuing like the career in the arts and everything like that, then I would be going the same route.
Yeah.
Psychology is also a passion of mine. I think growing up, I was raised an only child, and I grew up real quiet, observant person, on the outside looking in, and so kind of developed, I guess, an interest in watching people and trying to like figure out people's reasons for doing things and stuff like that. And I think that's where my motivation for it comes into play. But I heard you at Ian's talk about how self-awareness is something you're big into, and I instantly was like, okay, why not have a conversation about it and record it and use that as another piece of content, especially since it's something that from even looking back in history, the growth or popularization of self-portraiture, or even further back to Plato and know thyself, and saying that self-knowledge is the essence of all knowledge. So it's kind of been a millennium old buzzword. So obviously it's something that we should, as a society and as individuals, pay attention to. So what is self-awareness to you?
To me, it's just kind of being aware of yourself, knowing, I don't know, another term that I use for it is emotional intelligence. That's a term that I learned in this book called Emotional Intelligence by Daniel Goleman, and basically it's all about like understanding the things that trigger you, trigger certain emotions in you, and knowing how to respond to those emotions and not let them control you, but for you to be able to control them and be able to respond to situations and make the right decisions. So I don't know. It's definitely really important, and so I've been seeing a lot of articles lately saying that self-awareness and emotional intelligence are things that are really important in achieving success. I've read a lot of things about how the defining factors were previously thought to be the smartest people were the highest achievers, but now it's coming out and saying that people who are self-aware and emotionally intelligent are able to use the skills that they have to be able to manage people effectively and cultivate relationships and create a culture around their businesses to really be able to flourish and grow. So whether I do decide to go into the therapy or professor route, or if I decide to just create a business, I think that it's important in no matter what we do.
Right.
So
do you think as like like you said, it's just really becoming a lot more popularized and becoming the more of the message that's put out there. Do you think as a society we become more or less self-aware? Or is that even possible to say?
It's hard to say. I mean, I would love to say that as a society that we've become more self-aware, but it's really an individual by individual basis. And if I could help create a culture where we are more self-aware, and I knew how to do that, I would be all about it. I'd be all in on that. Unfortunately, I don't think that, I don't know, I think we're more self-aware in the fact that there's way more opportunities to see what we are as a culture. I think the internet has really provided a way for us to be able to look back and document everything that has been going on lately. But at the same time, I feel like we as people haven't really caught up and really been able to analyze our behaviors and be able to, I don't know, change those and work on them. So I think there's a little bit of both. I think there's more awareness, but I think there's still less awareness.
It's like a double-edged blade a little bit. Technology and the internet. And you know, of course, like cultural evolution is always like, you know, the rate of evolution is always more than what we can as humans keep up with. What do you think has to be done in order to reach self-awareness? You know,
I'm not entirely sure exactly how to do it or how to mass produce that. Very young and early on in my journey, but I don't know. I've read some things like over in Japan. Early in their education, they're not even learning math and other subjects like that. They're learning how to respect their elders and manners and things like that. And I think as Americans, we don't really have that in our school system. And I don't know, I really would like to see that as something that would be implemented, really teaching people how to work with one another, how to cope with the problems that we face when we conflict with each other.
For sure.
So, of course, that's a huge thing to change, and it would take a lot of people and whatnot. But I think that could be part of it.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's kind of like what Stephen Covey writes about in 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, where he talks about how there was a shift from like the culture of character to a culture of personality, and even like throughout history, particularly in America, where we've been this, you know, individualistic society, versus over there they have that more focus on being a collective, growing that way. So I always say to the team, like, I feel like it's kind of a cyclical thing where as you get better at more honestly expressing yourself, you grow as a person and become more self-aware, and then that helps you more honestly express yourself. You become more self-aware. Where do you see self-expression and come into play?
Self-expression is really important. And I don't think it matters if you are doing things you love or doing things you're not really sure about. I think it's really just about execution, just trying things. Because one way or the other, you're going to find out what you don't like or not. And so, I don't know. I definitely think that you just need to get out and try and figure out what it is that you're about. And once you figure that out, then you can start expressing yourself. And I don't know, but you can't go too far, because sometimes people try to express themselves and they push that on other people, and they try to force that on other people, and that's something that, like, it kind of pisses me off, because it's like, you can't be so sure about what you are and what you're about. Like, there was a recent quote by the actor Andrew Garfield. Basically, he talks about how he was starting in this movie about Christianity, I think, and I can't remember what the movie was called, but basically he said that a life of faith is a life of doubt. And you can't be so sure in yourself that, like what I was saying earlier, that you're forcing yourself on other people and your beliefs and what you think is right. And I don't know, I think that's awesome, because really you should be open to other experiences and other opinions and learning about what other people believe. So that's
it like kind of stunts your own growth if you box yourself in, like agreed. I know when I was in college, it was like 2013, I read Emerson's Self-Reliance, and I went through a little phase where I was it was like I got my Transcendentalist membership card in the mail, and I was just like, I don't know, just being really fake woke and pretentious, and was like I recently found a paper that I had written for my English class back then, and I just read it, and I just wanted to just like just throw myself off a bridge. I was like, God, my goodness, who was I?
Right now I'm going back through all like my Facebook memories. I'm like looking at stuff I posted 2 years ago. I was like, damn, what?
This was me,
man.
Oh man, I was going through that, and so that's kind of like, it goes back to what you're saying. Like I was like, man, I was just like so sure that this is like who I'm supposed to be, and this is who everyone should be.
Right.
And like all my like papers and stuff, like I don't even think it was about like anything that I was writing about, but I like made it about that, just to get my point across that like this is like something he said in the book was like imitation is suicide. And I forgot what the actual quote is or whatever, but just really I was like pushing my own belief. That professor must have hated me. But what aspects of psychology in particular would you feel like you're most drawn to?
One of the main ones is phenomenology, and basically it focuses on the experiences of each individual, and it's an approach to science in more of a subjective way instead of an objective way, because it's very concrete when you get objective, but experiences are not concrete. There's no exact formula that you can make to get through certain things. I mean, there's certain things that you can do to kind of help you get in a certain direction, but really there's no exact same scenario that you're going to face as somebody else. All your experiences are very individual, and it's so hard to look at that, but I don't know, it's in phenomenology, it's kind of taking in all those factors and really looking at everything as a whole of what you're going through. And so that's something that really interests me. I really like positive psychology, really just focusing on achieving and being your best self, because I don't know, I don't really like the aspect of diagnosing people in psychology. I really don't think, I don't know, I think a lot of people are really healthy. I think we just have certain behaviors that we aren't correct in, and like the way we operate. And so for me, it's all about correcting those behaviors. I really more so look at the symptoms of those mental disorders or diseases, and try to correct those in myself, and trying to improve myself and whatnot.
With going back to self-awareness, like with doing something like this, is really like outside of my comfort zone.
Yeah.
I'm a very introverted person, and how do you think how like important it is, or where does it come into play as far as like pushing yourself beyond, like still being self-aware, saying like this is who I am, but I know that there's certain times that I'm gonna have to push beyond my comfort zones and stuff like that without going like too far, or without like, what are your thoughts on that?
I mean, I think it's always good to push your boundaries. I'm introverted myself, and growing up in my family's business, it was a challenge for me to transition from being a host and a food runner, where I kind of just, my job was a little more physical. I would either take people to their tables or drop food off, to going on to being a server and being a bartender, where it's more hands-on with the people. And definitely, like, I was extremely uncomfortable when I first started that, but I think it's important to grow and push back past your boundaries, and really, like, I don't think that it's so much being introverted. I think it's more of being uncomfortable with your surroundings, and I think the more knowledge you have on what it is that you're doing, the more comfortable you are in that environment, and the more you're able to succeed in that. And so it's the only way to get through it is improving on those things and practicing it and just doing it, execution. So
Cool. Now, obviously, like, we can't expect like everyone to reach a point where we know like what norepinephrine is and oxytocin and all these different like brain chemicals and how they affect like depression and all these different things. But I do think that it is important for everybody to have at least a basic understanding, without being a dilettante, of psychology. I feel like, you know, the more people that are self-aware, and that means also like knowing about yourself physically, about your own biology and your psychology, then we could have like a better world. So like, how do you think, or what do you think about other people like learning about psychology, or how important it is?
In an ideal world, I would love for everybody to learn about themselves, but unfortunately this world is flawed, and you know, we can try to help other people and try to teach them the things that we know, but not everybody's gonna be willing to hear it. And so I don't know, it's tough, because you know, I think we're chasing this ideal of what we think the world should be, but actually making it that way is extremely challenging. I don't know, it's hard. I don't know if in our lifetime we will be able to see the success of what we want. Is it possible? Yeah, but really there's so many different people out there with so many different experiences, and I think that really the best way to get to other people is really just to listen to them. Whenever I'm having a conversation with somebody when it comes to politics or religion or anything that's controversial, well, instead of trying to push my point first, I try to listen to them and what their experience is. And once they feel heard, that's when I start to explain myself. And really it's more of meeting in the middle instead of trying to get people to understand your side. It's more about connecting with that other individual or other individuals and trying to better understand each other. So I think that is the most effective way of teaching other people what it is that we want them to know, is really listening to them and then try to help them understand us.
Okay. I like that. For sure. So, getting ready to close it, like, what are, say, like, three things, three of the top things that you've learned, or that, or your core tenets, in life as you've gone through life? It could be 4 to 3.
So, I guess I'm going to go to my tattoo, because that's kind of, I don't know. This is a representation of who I am as a person. And I'll start at the bottom. It's a deer, and each one represents a characteristic that I try to emulate. And so the deer to me represents gracefulness, and like trying to be nice and kind to others and gentle and caring. Of course, with that, there has to be certain boundaries, and that's kind of where the raccoon comes in. To me, it represents adaptability, being able to work with your environment and really be dexterous and not try to see the world the way you want to see it. You have to see it for what it is and be able to work with it that way. The next animal on here is a bear, and that to me represents strength. And to be able to deal with the world as it is, you have to be strong and be able to cope with that. But it not only takes strength, it takes wisdom, which is the owl on there. And I have a constant hunger for knowledge and learning. And after that is the fox, and that is what we talked about earlier, and that execution and just doing and being diplomatic in how you go about things. So that's kind of the 5 things that are a cornerstone of who I am and how do I try to work with this world.
I appreciate you coming through, Alec.
Of course. Thank you, Adrian.
It's great having a conversation with you.